Councilmember Sebastian, filling in for Mayor Pro Tem, for Mayor Khalid this evening. This is our first of 3 millage rate hearing. And so we welcome the citizens who are here, and hopefully many more have joined us online. Mr. Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem and members of council. This is the first millage rate public hearing, 6 p.m., July 25th. The Honorable Catherine F. Rao, District 1.
Present.
The Honorable Carmelita Gums, District 2.
Present.
The Honorable Helen Z. Willis, District 3.
Present.
The Honorable J.C. Sebastian, District 4.
Present.
The Honorable Keosha B. Bell, District 5. The Honorable Natasha Williams Brown, District 6.
Present.
The Honorable Linda B. Pritchett, District 7. And the Honorable Mayor Khalid.
Present.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, you have a quorum, and it appears the mayor is live on Zoom.
Mr. Mayor, is there anything you want to add before we move on?
No, I'm certainly not going to try and chair a meeting on Zoom. It's over to you, sir.
All right, thank you, sir. Next agenda item, Mr. Clerk.
First item on tonight's agenda is a millage rate presentation by the city manager, Sharon D. Subadan.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem, Mayor, and Council. This evening, we will be having the first of 3 public hearings on the millage. I have a presentation that I will go through, and at any point, if you want to stop me to ask a question, please just let me know that. Go ahead, Mr. Clerk. Next slide, please. So I always like to start with a little bit of a primer for those who don't work with millage every day. It's always helpful to be reminded that the millage rate is applied to the assessed value of taxable property to calculate the amount of property taxes that are due to be paid. It's stated, millage rate is stated as dollars per thousand. So 1 mil is $1 per thousand of assessed value. And for calculation purposes, we state the millage rate is as 1 mil is stated as 0.001. Millage rate is established every year by the Leveraging Taxing Authority. Next slide, please. The market value is the current amount at which a property can technically be bought or sold. As we know, market values shift. The assessed value in Georgia is 40% of the market value. And that's what we use to calculate. So if a piece of property is valued at $100,000, the corresponding assessed value is $40,000. Next slide, please. This just indicates the 40%, $40,000, 1 mil would be $40. Next slide, please. So let's talk a little bit about exemptions. A homestead exemption is a legal provision that reduces the amount of property taxes on owner-occupied properties. Exemptions are established by state law, voted on as citizens, and given by the city, county, and school districts. Next slide, please. In the city of South Fulton, all homeowners in their owner-occupied homes qualify for the basic homestead exemption, but there are many other exemptions that are available to citizens, especially in the city of South Fulton. Additional exemptions for seniors, for individuals with disabilities, veterans and spouses, surviving spouses of veterans, and first responders. Next slide, please. If anyone wants to get more information regarding the exemptions that they may be entitled to, that will be provided by the Fulton County Tax Assessor's Office, and the number is displayed on the screen. This presentation is also available on the city's website under the the FY25 budget tab on our homepage. So in the city of South Fulton, these are the list of exemptions that are available to homeowners in our community. I won't read them, but you can see they are significant. The amount of the actual exemption is is displayed in the third column over. The number of exemptions totals 24,579. And then the value of those exemptions is $33.253 million. Next slide, please. I won't attempt to read this slide, but if anybody is curious about what a specific exemption means, this is a glossary. And again, this presentation can be found on our website. Next slide, please. So this is a chart that you're probably familiar with. It's a little busy, but this is advertised with our millage rate hearings in the newspaper. It gives a 5-year digest history of the levy, and you can see over time how our taxable digest has changed. It has increased because we have annexed additional property into the city, and it has also increased because the value of property has gone up. Our total digest before exemptions is $7.8 billion. After $2.6 billion in exemptions, the remainder is $5.1 billion. If you drop down to the net M&O tax levied amount, it's $63.665,792, and that again is the total value, including our maintenance and operation and sales tax reduction. I think it's very important to note that when you look at the percentage, the very last line, the percentage of increase in our net digest over time, this year we will see the lowest net increase in 4 years. This year, our net increase is $4.1 million, as opposed to, which is a 6.9% increase, as opposed to last year, which was 15.47. The year prior was 32.48. The year before that, it was 10.84, and the year prior to that, it was 17.77. So this is not totally a surprise to me. When we went through this exercise last year, one of the things I shared with you is the real estate market has been very hot. We've seen significant property value increases, and it would not surprise me if this started to taper off, and this is what I believe we are seeing. I also have to share that we are seeing more exemptions being filed. Part of that could be a bit of aging in our community, as well as awareness around exemptions that people are applying for. So with a lower increase in our digest and more exemptions, we're seeing a much smaller increase in our net digest than in years prior. Any questions so far? All right, next slide, please. So this is a breakdown of our digest. Real property, of course, is always the highest category. There's personal property, motor vehicles. We have seen a bit of an uptick in motor vehicles this year. And our total digest, 7.8, less our exemptions, results in our net digest of 5.1 million. Next slide, please. So our current millage rate is 12.39. You'll recall that we did a reduction last year. This year, it is staff's recommendation that we leave the millage rate at the same rate of 12.39. Next, please. And next slide. So the rollback rate is the same, is the previous year's millage rate, plus or minus. Of course, this is usually minus the millage equivalent of the total net value. The rollback rate for this year would be 11.89 if the council chose to do a complete rollback. Next slide, please. This is often of interest. We are required to explain what the property tax on a fair market value home of $175,000 is. So going back to the little primer that we did, at $175,000 fair market value, 40% will be $70,000. That's the assessed value. A basic homestead exemption is what generally a homeowner who's owner occupied would have at $30,000. Reducing that would leave a $40,000 taxable value. At our current millage rate of 0.12399, the city property taxes would be $495. The difference between this year and last year would be $21.60 for a person with a fair market value of $175,000 and just the basic homestead exemption. Next slide, please. And this is just a calculation demonstrating the difference between the current millage rate and the rollback rate. Next slide. And so one of the questions last year, one of the comments last year is there are very few properties in the city of South Fulton with a $175,000 fair market value. And so what we did last year is we took a higher fair market value to demonstrate what the difference would be, and we incorporated the exemptions, other exemptions that exist for county and school age school board exemptions for individuals, for example, over 62 years old. And as you can see in this instance, the difference between the existing millage rate and the rollback rate is $42.12. And both of those, the one I shared before and this one, is an annual difference of $42.12. So once again, we are recommending that we keep the millage rate the same. And year over year, obviously, this is the first of 3 public hearings. Mayor and council make the ultimate recommendation decision, but staff's recommendation is we retain the millage rate the same for 2024 as we did in 2023. And with that, I'm subject to your questions.
Thank you, Madam City Manager. Mr. Clerk, do we have access to the queue?
Yes, sir.
All right, it hasn't shown yet, so maybe we should just go down the line and we'll go to Councilmember Gums online. Councilmember Royal, do you have any questions?
I don't.
All right. Councilmember Gums?
I have no questions.
Councilmember Willis?
I don't have any questions.
I don't either. Councilmember Williams-Brown?
No questions.
Okay. If there aren't any questions, we can open the public hearing now, Mr. Clerk.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem and members of council, we did receive one public comment card, and I also sent you a public comment that was submitted in written format as well. But the speaker that is present tonight is Mr. James Reese. Mr. Reese, please approach one of the microphones. And Mr. Mayor Pro Tem and council, are we allocating the customary 3 minutes?
Good afternoon, council and mayor. I'm going to come every year and ask for a lower millage rate. It's just the way I think. My home since 2021 fair market value has doubled, and this year it really went up because next to me is what they're telling me is a $2 million house that was built out of nowhere. So my rates went up. And I'm going to ask that you go back to the rollback rate. Under state law, that rollback rate should be published in the paper as an increase if you do not go to the rollback rate. So it goes under state law as a tax increase. That's the way it's pronounced in the state. So when you publicize this, it should be looked at as a tax increase because you didn't go to the rollback rate. I would really love for you to go to the rollback rate. because the values have really gone up around the city. And the city is collecting more money. You may not see it right now, but it's there. It's there. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Do we have any other speakers?
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, I did not receive any additional comment cards. I don't know if anyone is present that wishes to provide public comment at this time. You could approach one of the microphones. Not seeing any movement, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem. That completes the public comment for the millage rate.
All right, thank you. So we'll now close the millage rate public hearing portion of our meeting. And Mr. Clerk, could you call the next item?
The next item is the first read of an ordinance to adopt the 2024 millage rate at 12.399 for the city property tax for the city of South Fulton, Georgia. The second read will be read at the August 13th City Council regular meeting for consideration.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Mr. Mayor, I think you're still present. My apologies. I probably should have come to you and asked you if you had any comments before. Mr. Mayor, are you still online? All right.
Yes, I'm still here. I have any comments. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. With that being said, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, can we get a vote by show of hands?
Court, that motion approved 4-0. We are adjourned at 6:19 p.m.
Thank
Thank you
you.
and have a good evening.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.